Caps Baseball Score 1991 box break. This is our first box break, and we are doing this in an effort to use it as a bit of a dry run. We're going to be doing some live box breaks starting next week with the 2020 hobby boxes. And so what better way to do a trial run than with a 1991 Score box. Score was probably arguably one of the worst products of the last 30 years that had come out onto the market, especially this particular year, 1991. You'll see on the box that it's got good old Will Clark on the top. We've got photo quality on the side, and of course we'll be the judge of what type of photo quality we have. Good old Bip Roberts from the San Diego Padres, and Jim Abbott, the lefty for the Angels. And on the other side, we've got Robbie Alomar before the big trade to Toronto, and Dave Stieb, pitcher for the Blue Jays. So we'll begin the box break by taking out our stuff here. And as I pull out the cards, what are we looking for? We're probably looking for a Mike Mussina rookie card. That's the best rookie card in the bunch. There's some other cards as well in there that Master Blasters and different things, but arguably Mike Mussina rookie is probably the best card that we're looking for. So without further ado, let's get this underway, and we'll start taking a look and see what we're going to be able to pull. All right, so the very first card that we pull out of the break is Terry Mulholland, the former lefty from the Phillies. Andy Hawkins, John Tudor, Lee Stevens, Terry Shumpert, rookie prospect, David Walsh, Jeff McKnight, Mark Dewey, Marty Barrett, Dwight Evans, Terry Pendleton, Mike LaValliere. We got one of these World Series trivia card 3D type cards. Craig Biggio, a Hall of Famer. Melito Perez, Tim Burke, and Mike Pagliarulo. What do the backs of the cards look like? Well, pretty cutting edge at the time. Topps never used to put photos on the back. They've got photos on the cards. I know Upper Deck was probably the leader at that time in the industry, where they started to put photos on the front and back of the cards. I really like the Major League records, where they give full Major League record of the players. And also on the back, they give a little bit of information about the player, in this case about Mike Pagliarulo, nicknamed Pags. He regained his batting stroke that eluded him for the past few seasons, and you can read the rest there. So that's pack number one out of the way. Here we go with pack number two. Pack number two, we've got Chuck Krim, Kurt Manwaring, Joe Carter. Joe Carter again before the big trade to the Toronto Blue Jays, Ozzie Guillen, Mark Neufeld, first-round pick of the Mariners, David Cohn, Mark Langston, John Moses, Steve Wilson, Blankenship, Stubbs, Rafael Ramirez, another one of those trivia cards, Ken Caminetti, Willie Randolph, another Hall of Famer, Tom Glavine, and Ken Obertfell. Our next pack, another Hall of Famer out of the gate, Cal Ripken Jr., Greg Swindell, another one, Ken Griffey Jr., Glenn Braggs, Eric Davis, Nolan Ryan, 300 career victories, Junior Noboa, Jamie Moyer was probably in the middle of his career at that time, Scott Terry, Jeff King, Larry Walker, recently elected to the Hall of Fame, Pride of Maple Ridge, British Columbia, Canada, Jack Armstrong, Juan Berenguer, Jeff Robinson, Deion James, and Carlos Quentin. Juan Berenguer, ironically, he had a son who I believe was in the New Jersey Devils organization, was drafted at some point in time, ended up trying to become a professional hockey player. Okay, next rip. We got Cal Daniels, Roberto Alomar again, Alan Trammell, other Hall of Famer, Doug Jones, Dan Smith, Ken Griffey Jr. with the All-Star Fat Head card, almost like a bobblehead. Fred McGriff, pretty good batting stance for McGriff. Benny Santiago, Marty Barrett, Dwight Evans, Terry Pendleton, Mike LaValliere. World Series, we got Lenny Harris, Dave Schmidt, Jeff Reardon, Larry Sheets. Pretty uninspiring pack. All right. One good thing about the packs was score. Obviously, they never put gum in the pack, and most of the packs that you get, obviously, without the gum stains on the back, but a lot of the players that you get, the photos aren't that bad. Had an opportunity to look back at some of the 1970s top stuff and 70s top stuff. You got a lot of headshots and a lot of different things with the players. Greg Hibbert, Don Paul. There's Jesse Barfield. His stint with the Yankees. Paul Gibson. Okay. Now this particular set, this particular box, you got 16 cards in each box or in each pack, and then of course in each box you had about 36 packs to the box. You've got Dave Justice, John Burnett, Charles Daggy, Todd Benzinger, Offerman, Poole, Abbott Hasselman, Rob Deere. I always remember Rob Deere when he played with the Tigers. Rob Deere, Al Kaline said, no offense to Rob, he was a hack at the plate and a butcher in the field, and he couldn't understand why he was being taken out of the lineup. So anyways, it was too bad for Rob. Ken Caminiti, Willie Randolph, another Tom Glavine, Ken Obertfeld. We'll try to cycle through the box break here and see what else we can pull. We've got Mike Jackson, Greg Harris, Brett Saberhagen. Really enjoyed watching Brett Saberhagen pitch back in the 80s and the 90s. John Franco, Rafael Navoa, Chuck McElroy, Carl Everett, Ozzie Guillen, John Wetland, who's got himself in trouble with the law lately. Edgar Martinez, who's a Seattle Mariner Hall of Famer. Sean Abner, Greg Harris. There's another Hall of Famer, Jack Morris. Matt Young, Randy Velarde, and Eric Anthony. Scott Radensky, Tom, was it Edens? Dave Martinez, Landrum, Reed. Still no, there's Adam Hisdu, no Mike Mussina yet, Julio Franco, Bert Blyleven, Charlie Hayes, Neil Heaton, Kurt Young, another one of those World Series cards. Well, sticking a little bit to Jeff Brantley, Mark Carrion, Sid Fernandez, and Howard Johnson, Hojo, who was the Seattle Mariners hitting coach a couple seasons ago and was dismissed for Edgar Martinez. Jamie Navarro, Will Clark, Jerome Walton, Jack McDowell. Jack McDowell recently came out and said, or accused Tony La Russa of tampering with the scoreboard in center field in Old Comiskey Park and stealing signs. So maybe La Russa was on the cutting edge of that before A.J. Hinch. Jesse Barfield, with one of the strongest arms in baseball during that time. Vaughn Hayes, Dan Petrie, Brian McRae, Mark Knudsen, Tom Browning, Gary Reedus, Daryl Ackerfelds, would it be McDowell, Felix Fermin, Charlie Huff, one of the few knuckleballers that have graced our fields in the last 30 years, and Steve Bye Balboni. Next, we got Tim Drummond, Billy Spires, Willie Frazier, Mike Bordick, Jim Vatcher, still no Mussina, Mel Stottlemyre Jr., Kevin Apier, he had a nice career. There's a Hall of Famer, catcher, and Carlton Fisk. Eric Davis of the Cincinnati Reds. I always enjoyed watching Eric Davis play. He ended up with the Dodgers and the Tigers, amongst other teams. And they said, he's got some lightning quick hands. He was actually a part of Arthur Ashe's tennis academy or tennis school that they had in the Los Angeles area, trying to promote that. Apparently, his game was pretty solid for a young athlete. Scott Fletcher, Jeff Leonard, Mark Langston, John Moses, Otis Nixon. There's the Dream Team card for Jose Canseco. And they did a few of these shots. I think Canseco was the only one in the Series 1. A lot of guys with their shirts off. I think that came in Series 2 of that year. Mike Morgan, Kevin Seitzer. Seitzer was a hitting coach recently. I think he was with the Tigers and might have been with Atlanta. Another Hall of Famer, John Schmaltz, Mark Gubazov, Gary Templeton, and Bill Swift. Wayne Edwards, Carlos Baerga, Randy Milligan, John Crook, Brian McRae, Terry Shumpert, Mike Devereaux. There's a Sammy Sosa and an old-fashioned White Sox uni. Started those throwback days. Willie Randolph, another Tom Glavine, on Baron Gare. I think so far we're up to 3 Glavines. 3 Glavines in the box. We're probably just a little over, almost halfway still to go. Okay, we got Kevin Gross, Tony Phillips. Tony Phillips passed away a couple of years ago suddenly, unfortunately. Mookie Wilson, Rick Parker, Chris Hoyles, Ozzie Canseco. Anthony Telford, Rafael Novoa, Marquise Grissom, Don Carmen, Mike Boddicker, Zeal, Roy Smith. Yeah, there's Matt Williams' card. Pretty cool. Tony Phillips. I remember seeing a video of Tony Phillips one time, and he was playing at that time for, I don't think he was with the Tigers yet. I think he was still with Oakland, and they're playing the White Sox. Oh, there's Nolan Ryan playing the White Sox, and he was the leadoff hitter in the game. And Terry Bevington was managing the White Sox at the time. And the first pitch of the ball game, Ron Karkovice was catching, and the pitcher for the White Sox threw a fastball, and Karkovice fanned on the pitch. Hit Ken Kaiser, who was the longtime umpire and former wrestler behind the plate. Kaiser wasn't very happy, took the ball out of his pouch and rolled it back to the mound, or took the next ball out of his pouch, rolled it back to the mound. And then what ended up happening is the very next pitch, the pitch is coming up to the plate, and it's about halfway to the plate, and Kaiser yells out, "Ball 2." And so Phillips, who was batting, looks back and doesn't know what the heck's going on, and Bevington's wondering what the heck's happening, and Kaiser yells over to the dugout, "You better get your bullpen ready." And so, of course, the next pitch is ball 3, and it's not even close, and Bevington comes out and absolutely loses it on Kaiser to begin the game. But that was back in the days when the umpires had a little bit more leeway than what we used to have. There's a Kirby Puckett. Kirby Puckett left us far too soon. Mike Heath. Okay. Next one up is Scott Radensky, Tom Edens, Dave Martinez, Billy Landrum, Carl Everett. Still no Mike Mussina yet. Bert Blyleven. Another one of those World Series ones. We got piles of those things. Doug DeCenzo, outfielder on the mound pitching. Roberto Kelly. I'd like to give a couple shout-outs in this video. The first shout-out is to the Jabs family. The Jabs family do a lot of card breaks, and they have a lot of people that tune in. And I myself, as being one of them, really, really enjoy watching the Jabs family. And, of course, that's inspired us to do a little bit of breaking here as well. Another Jesse Barfield. And so I want to give the shout-out to the Jabs family for making the hobby fun, but also for us being able to do what we're doing. So what is Last Raps Baseball? Well, Last Raps Baseball, we provide instruction, and we do clinics for kids in the lower mainland of British Columbia in Vancouver, BC. And there's Hall of Famer Paul Molitor. And so for the kids that come to our camps and clinics, at the end of the day, we always give the kids baseball cards, usually an old player and a new player, and it gives them something to talk about when they go home. There's Tom Glavine. I think that's number 4. So when they go home from the clinic, they get an opportunity to talk with their parents, maybe share it. And what we find here is that we're in an area that, though baseball is played quite a bit, for this area of Canada, it's not always watched, but it's also not always watched and focused on. So, for example, if you were living in, if you're living in New York, a lot of people live and die the Yankees or the Mets, but those are the two main teams that people are following. And certainly if you're in the Bronx, you probably grew up being a Yankee fan. If you're in Queens, you probably grew up being a Mets fan, or, along those lines. And if you're in Philly, you follow the Phillies and so on and so forth. But when you're in a marketplace like ours, which doesn't have a major league team, everybody's following somebody a little bit different. And it's hard to connect sometimes because not everybody is watching the game every single day. I grew up outside of the Detroit area in Windsor, and it was Tiger baseball 24/7 during the season. And whether it be day game, night game, whether it be on the coast, whatever coast they were on, the Tigers were always front and center in our lives. And so the topics, there was Jeremy Burnett's, Lance Dixon, still no Mussina. And because the Tigers were number one in our media, number one on our radio, for most people, obviously the natural tendency is to grow up being a Tiger fan. Of course, the Toronto Blue Jays came along in the late 70s, and some people started to follow the Blue Jays because they were Canada's team to complement the Expos. Of course, there's Don Mattingly, Van Poppel, Neufeld. But most people in the Windsor area, living 20, 25 minutes from Old Tiger Stadium, depending on what you could do, you could get there fairly quickly, and back in a time when you could get across the border fairly quick as well. So, that being said, the cards are a way for us to hopefully connect the kids to the game, and they start learning about the players, and they start understanding some of the stuff. There's another Canseco, still no Mussina, Tim Cruz, Berenguer again, Deion James. Well, another thing is we have the kids who do come to the stuff. They you hopefully make that connection. Hopefully it inspires them, and they start watching, following somebody, or they say, "Hey, I saw that guy," or they like a certain player. But also too, it makes it easier when they're following the game and watching the game, and you can connect with them. You say, "Hey, did you see that play last night, or did you see that on Sports Center?" That highlight that so-and-so made. And when you can do that, it makes it a lot easier. A lot of kids, they follow hockey or soccer, or they got other types of choices of sports that they're doing, but as long as you can connect them to this sport, it works out all right. And there it is. There's Mike Mussina, probably arguably the best card in this set. Okay, first round pick, Hall of Famer of the Baltimore Orioles. A bunch of other guys. There's a Cecil Fielder. Cecil Fielder had probably about this time had come back from Japan. He'd originally with the Blue Jays organization, came back to the Tigers. Yeah, sure. In 1990 with the Tigers, he was hit 51 home runs. He spent a year or two in Japan. Spent a year in Japan. Came back, helped the Tigers out, and then the year after that, the Tigers picked up Bill Gullickson, who claimed him off waivers from Houston after he spent 3 years in Japan, reinventing himself as a pitcher with the Yomiuri Giants. And Gullickson, off the Japanese scrap heap, was able to win 21 games for the Tigers back in 1991. So Fielder and Gullickson getting it done for the Tigers. There's another one of those World Series things as well. Luis Salazar, Mark Parent. Okay, we're down to about 6 packs to go here. Let's see what we've got. Robbie Thompson, Mike Scott, Tim Tuffle, Marquise Grissom. Nope, another one of those. Not much there. Let's take a look at that for a second here. A lot of these little ones, they give the World Series trivia. So they ask a question. So obviously from 1939, they'll ask a question, or they'll give you some information and talk about the Yankees became the first team in history to win 4 consecutive World Series when they defeated the Reds in 1939. And it goes on to give you information about that. So just little bits of tidbits, a little bit of information, a little bit of things that, obviously trying to teach the kids and adults the same, the history of the game. Kevin Tapney, Leyritz. Yeah. So if you're interested in more in Last Raps Baseball, you can also check us out. You can check us out on Patreon. We have a Patreon page, which is Patreon/Last Raps Baseball. We are obviously here on YouTube, and you can check us out on eBay. We're going to do the live box breaks, and people will have an opportunity to go online and be able to, there's Alex Fernandez, be able to win some of the stuff out of the box breaks. And whatever we don't sell and whatever we don't to do, we give away to the kids in our clinics. So some of this here for the collectors that are out there, it'll allow us to be able to connect with them, to give them some premium cards that they can take and they can add to their own collection, but at the same time, we can recycle some of that money and put it back into the cards and keep giving it to the kids. Carl Tuffy Rhodes. Carl Tuffy Rhodes spent some time in the Japanese league. He is the all-time leader in home runs for non-Japanese players, and he tied Sadahara O's record with most home runs in a season, and I think it was 51 home runs is what he ended up hitting that one year. 2 more packs to go. Still only one Mussina, but we got a pile of Juan Berenguers. So you can see the box break here. It's interesting. There's our first Ricky Henderson of this box. Going for the dive. Dave Steeb, Tim Raines, Adam Hisdu again. Martinez. Hey, there's a Rifleman, Bo Jackson. Chris Gwynn. Tony. Dennis Boyd. The oil can. Former Montreal Expo. All right, we're down to our last pack. Let's see what we got. Oh, Kirby Puckett again. Okay, we got Scott Fletcher, Jeffrey Leonard, Greg Olson, another Bo Jackson, Pat Borders, Omar Vizquel, Mark Carrion, Howard Johnson, Kirby Puckett. Well, I want to appreciate everybody for sticking around. Hopefully, if you stayed to the end of this video and you got a chance to watch it, the best thing we got out of it was Mike Mussina, first-round draft pick of the Baltimore Orioles. Well, this is round number 1 for Last Raps Baseball. If you enjoy the video, please give us a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. We're going to do some more in the future, and hopefully we can look at some better cardboard than what we just opened now. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.